Seventh chords don't need to be mysterious. These chords offer you something completely different than a typical major or a minor chord. Not only is it going to give you a different sound, it's going to give you a different feeling to the song that you're playing. So what you're hearing now is my attempt to play Radiohead's song Weird Fishes off of their amazing album In Rainbows. Now this song features a few different seventh chords in a very unique way. Now I wanted to take the song and use it as a tool to help us further understand seventh chords, how we get them, and how they could be applied to any kind of music that you're playing. So get your guitar, strap in, and we'll start learning some of these seventh chords. My name is Keith. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, again, the song is called Weird Fishes. It's off of Radiohead's amazing album In Rainbows. I would suggest you listen to that if you haven't. And also on YouTube, you could find their In the Basement version, which I believe they play the whole album from front to back completely live. Really cool. Check it out. So the way we're going to approach this today is I'm going to show you all the chords and how to play that intro first. Then we're going to delve a little bit deeper into how these chords are actually formed. What makes this a seventh chord? How do I do that? And more importantly, how could I build that myself without having to read a tab or look it up on any kind of website? And then, if you stick around to the very end, I'm going to show you how you could take those same exact chords here and use those to make something completely different and unique, something pretty cool. So stick with me there. But first, we're going to go ahead and learn the intro to the song, so let's hop down to the fretboard. Alright, so the first thing we need to talk about for this particular song is the actual finger pattern, right? So we're not going to be using our guitar pick today. We're going to be using our picking hand without the pick. And we're going to do a little finger style on the chords. So the way that I like to do this is I'm just going to use three fingers, my middle finger, my index finger, and my thumb. We're going to be working on the same string set this whole song. The strings are the A, D, and G strings. Those are the only three strings we're going to be using for this song. So the pattern is I'm going to pluck up once with my middle finger and on the G string, then I'm going to pluck up once with my index finger on the D string, and then pluck down with my thumb on the A string. So here's that first chord, and it's going to sound like this. Whoop. So I will suggest practicing it really slow first, and then speed up as you go. That's how you get that little pattern. So let's go ahead and learn that first chord. The first chord is an E7, an E minor 7 actually, and this is the chord. You have the chart right up on the screen. So there's two different ways to finger this particular chord and the next one. I'm going to show you the proper way to do it, and then I'm going to show you the way I do it. And there's a reason why I do it different than the quote-unquote popular way. Here's the proper way. You take your ring finger on the 7th fret of the A string. You take your index finger on the 5th fret of the D string, and then you take your pinky on the 7th fret of the G string, and then you have this chord. That's our E minor 7. Alright, the way I like to do it, instead of holding it like that, I just switch and I use my middle finger on the 7th fret of the A string and my ring finger on the 7th fret of the G string. Same chord, different way to do it. So I'm going to stick with my way for the rest of the video. The next chord that we have is F sharp minor 7th. So basically this is our E minor 7th. Scooch it up 2 frets. You have an F sharp minor 7th. Same exact fingering pattern. Alright, so the next chord we're going to do is an A chord, or a kind of a variety or a different flavor of an A chord. To get that, it is the middle finger on the 12th fret of the A string, the index finger on the 11th fret of the D string, and then your pinky on the 14th fret of the G string. Together we have this. Finally, we're going to go to the G major 7. To get that, you have the 10th fret of the A string. That's where your middle finger is going to go. And then the 9th fret of the D string with your index finger. And then the 11th fret of the G string with your pinky. So all together, to play the intro with the tab up, we have this pattern for that E minor 7. We're going to strum through that 11 times. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. 10 times. I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then move up 11 times on the F sharp minor 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Then we're going to go all the way up here to that A. And that's 11 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then the G major 7th. That's 10 times. 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That, and then you go back to the beginning. And then it kind of switches up with the counting. I don't want to get in too in depth with the counting on this song because it's a little bit all over the place. I don't know why they did it that way, but it sounds good. So, those are all the chords. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, I want to take this opportunity to figure out how we got these 7th chords in the first place. How is this an E minor 7th? How is this an F sharp minor? And then the G major 7th, right? Those don't look anything, at least right off the bat, like those chords that we're talking about, but I'm going to show you exactly why. So if I say this is an E minor 7, let's figure out why it's an E minor 7. The first rule, figure out where your root is. The root is an E, right? Here's our E. That is the 7th fret of the A string. How do we get there? So let's think about it this way. If we have a C chord here, move it up 2 frets, that's a D. Move it up 2 frets, that's an E. Alright, that's our A-shaped E. That means this right here is our E. Cool, we have that. So the next step that I like to take is to look at the major scale for that so I could count it out, right? So if I have the major scale up, it's... Right, so let's count that out. So what makes this E an E minor? What makes any chord an E minor? You flatten the third on that chord, right? So let's count and figure out where our third is and then flatten it. So we count out from that major scale, 1, 2, 3. So this is our third. So if I take that and move it back a fret, that flattens it out, right? So that's our flat third. 1, 2, flat third. So right now we have the root E and a flat third. Now we need to make it a 7th, right? So we have a minor, that's an E minor. Now we need to make it an E minor 7th. So let's find that 7th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's our 7th, right? Because if we go up one more, it's an E. But this is the note right before is our 7th. But since this is a minor 7th, we're going to flatten that 7th too. So this is just a E minor 7th. So we have the 7th here, flatten 7. And you can see it's purple on the chart. It's showing the flat third and the flat 7th. We put those three together with the root, we have an E minor 7th. Now the same rule applies to the F sharp minor 7th. You just scooch it up to the F sharp. This is our F sharp right here. That's our root. E minor flat, E minor 7th, F sharp minor 7th. Now, how's this an F sharp, right? I move 2 frets. Remember, between the E and F, it's only 1 fret apart. So if I move 2 frets up, it's a E, F, F sharp, and that's where that chord is. All right, now let's look at the A chord, right? This does not look like your typical A chord. And really, this is not an A chord or an A triad. It's a form or a flavor of an A. I don't want to get into the technical terms, but I will show you the notes, right? So if I have my middle finger on the 12th fret of the A string, we know that's an A. So that's our first one. And then if we look back here and count out the A major scale, 1, 2, 3. So that's the 1 and the 3. And then we have this right here. That's another A. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's an A again. So we have the 1, 3, 1. That's an A. Alright, so let's look at the final chord of this song that we're going to be looking at. So that would be the G major 7th. Okay, so the G major 7th is a little tricky. Now, there is a difference between major 7ths and just 7ths, right? There's a major 7th and a dominant 7th. The major 7th has just a 7th in that chord. The dominant 7th has a flattened 7th. That's the difference between the two. That's the key. So, where we looked at that minor 7th, we took that 7th and flattened that in addition to the minor, the flattened 3rd. Here, we're going to keep everything the same, but we're just going to keep that 7th in, and we're just going to have the normal 3rd. So, it sounds complicated. I'll show you exactly on the fretboard. So, if we look at it this way, where's our root? Again, first thing you need to look at is the root. That's a G, right? So this is our G. That's our root. Again, I always like to use the major scale, so let's count it out with the major scale. 1, 2, 3. That's our 3rd. 4, 5, 6, 7. Then it goes right up to that octave. Right? So we have the 7th here. We have the 3rd here. And then we have the root. So root, 3rd, 7th. Together that makes our G major 7th. And that's how we get the 7ths. All right, let's talk about the way you'll see this annotated or denoted on music tabs or whatever. Just keep this as a rule of thumb. Let's say I have an A7 and it just says A7 on it. That is a dominant 7th. If I see something that says A major 7th, that means it's a major 7th. So remember, the major 7th has the 7th in it. A dominant 7th has a flat 7th. So you take that 7th and you move it back a fret. All right, now we have all that straightened out. I told you I would show you something pretty cool to use with these chords. So let's take a look at it. So if I have this E minor 7th, F sharp minor, and the G major 7th. What if I do something like this? I have a G major 7th. I'm just scooting that 7th up to the octave, which is similar to how we had that A here. Right? You could just mess around with all these different 7th chords now that you have that tool and just move that shape across the fretboard, figure out things that work fine, mix in minor 7ths, major 7ths. So take that and run with it. I think you should do that. And it'd be so much fun making your own song with these chords. All right, so I really hope that you got something out of this. And if you did, please like, subscribe, and share it with somebody. And I will talk to you later. You have a good day. And I have my pick. Good.